What if the next version of you 5 years from today is someone you can't even imagine? Stronger, more aligned, and more fulfilled. Because you finally stopped living for the expectations of others and started living in your truth. That's the kind of transformation that today's guest embodies. Jennifer Christensen is a powerhouse entrepreneur, the founder of the beauty tech brand Face Trace, and a woman whose journey has been defined by bold pivots, deep faith, and relentless purpose. From pursuing a career in medicine to launching a TV show to entering the tech space and opening schools for children with special needs, Jennifer's story is nothing short of extraordinary. But what I love most about her is not the titles or the accolades. It's the heart behind it all. Her honesty, her resilience, and her unwavering belief that you can start over as many times as you need to. In this episode, you'll hear how she found her way back to herself after losing her identity in motherhood, how she stopped letting perception define her worth, and why owning your story is the most powerful thing you can do. If you're in a season of transition or you're searching for what's next, this conversation will light something in you. Let's dive in. So I am so pumped to have this conversation with you. I know just a little bit about your background, and what I do know, you're a powerhouse of a woman. You launched a beauty tech brand, Face Trace. So before we talk about purpose and what you know purpose to be today, talk just a little bit about what Face Trace is and what your mission is behind Face Trace.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to be with you. So Face Trace is a mobile app. We developed a software that teaches diverse women how to properly apply cosmetics for their diverse facial features. So if you are trying to apply cosmetics, it's important that you do it specifically for your face shape, eye shape, skin tone, and eye color. And what the market offers you today is, makeup tutorials. And you might be following methods that somebody uses to get a particular look in a way that is not best for you. So allowing women to have a customized solution for self-care was what we created with technology. Using AI and AR. And I came up with this just because I learned that only 4% of women in the world feel beautiful. And there's so many reasons why that would be true, right? We're constantly evolving. We're constantly changing. There's so much pressure. There's so many challenges. There's a lot of comparison, especially with the interplay of social media. And I saw a study that called the lipstick effect, that simply applying lipstick not only boosted your self-esteem, but your cognitive abilities and your academic performance, because think about it, it makes sense. Look better, feel better, right? Perform better. And so I know, especially as a mom and an entrepreneur that juggles a lot, just like all women, the first thing that we compromise is self-care. And when you compromise self-care, you become disconnected from yourself and your purpose. And you don't have the ultimate levels of joy in life. And I wanted to create a solution that was convenient for women to have self-care that made them feel good. And so here we are.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to check it out. I have not used it myself, but I'm so curious.
It's in a private mode right now for beta testers. So I've tested it with 1,500, and that's kind of the challenge and journey of entrepreneurhood. I started this in the pandemic, and so the journey of capital raising is tough in the kind of climate that we've been in. So I raised capital that got me to the first stage of building what we call our MVP, testing it with 1,500 users. And then, we're working on the next stage, advancing it. And, that is something that happens in entrepreneurship is, I always say, the power of the pivot. You might start one way and think that you're going to use your technology or your business or whatever in one direction. And then as you have conversations in the market or with other business opportunities, you decide that you maybe want to go in a different way. So I'm exploring some other avenues for the tech and the software right now, some licensing things. And so that's what we're working on today.
What I find so inspiring about you is the power of the pivot. Let's dive into that because you have made major life pivots. Talk a little bit about what you first thought you wanted to do coming out of high school, going into college.
Wow. Yeah. I've had a lot of pivots. So I always call them the leap of faith, right? In entrepreneurship, we call it the pivot, but a leap of faith. That was when I first started to learn these things. I had lived my whole life thinking I was going to be a doctor. And I mean, from a very young little girl, that was what I studied. I was a science geek. I was the science fair winner. I was all those things. I was volunteering in hospitals thousands of hours before I graduated high school. I was 15. I got my first job at a doctor's office, went to the University of Michigan because that's had a great med school and that's what I was going to do. So I was pre-med there, and I was in my second year of school, and I just had a very entrepreneurial spirit, and I wanted the opportunity to still help people and create impact. But I didn't like two things. One, I didn't like the way insurance companies have an impact on how you can practice medicine. That was bothersome to me, that I wouldn't be able to treat patients in the way that I knew they would need me or other doctors and feel like my hands were tied. And two, I felt like I'd be suffocated in the doctor's office. And I realized there were more ways that I can help people or create impact without having to be a doctor, which is why I wanted to be a doctor. So I said, maybe I love to write, and I wanted to like have a talk show once upon a time. I ended up doing that in my lifetime. And I said, I think I'm going to go into the media. I can work in communities. I can have a voice. I can build a platform and create impact in a variety of ways from there. And so I said, okay, I will finish my medical school stuff, all my credits. I will add journalism on. My degree was in psychology. If it doesn't work out, I'll just be a neurosurgeon because I've taken all the courses. So it ended up working out. I was an intern. I started as an intern at Fox News in Detroit, Southfield. And I took 21 credits at a time. I did my internship at 5 p.m. I got home at 2 in the morning. I did my homework, went to school. So I was reporting. I graduated from the University of Michigan a year early because I was taking so many credits at a time, and I went into college with a lot of AP courses. So in that 3 years, in that year that I was able to buy, I was able to explore, a career path maybe differently than my peers because I gave myself an extra year to do that. So I came home to Chicago at the time, and then I started, pitching different shows to different networks. And I started working at WCIU in Chicago. I pitched a show called The Chicago Insider, and I hosted it, I produced it. And I was interviewing all the celebs and politicians and all kinds of people that came into town. I was working with I interviewed President Clinton and, Beyonce and Kanye at the time, and, a lot of different congressmen, Barbara Walters. I mean, it was like, they were like, who's this young kid coming here? Because Chicago wasn't that sort of entertainment market. So I did that. And then, it was 2008. And oh my God, the market crashed and everybody was getting.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, I have to, not just for me, it was like I was looking at all these business owners and I had built this huge network, especially being in the media, and social media had just come out. And I was one of the first Facebook kids because I was a freshman in college in 2004. So I had a network that maybe virtually like nobody in the country, the world had yet, because social media just started. So I had thousands of people following me. And I said, I want to help these people promote their businesses. So I started a PR company with some girlfriends that were also in PR. And we used to have business events and marketing events and, help people build their brands. It was doing great. And then one day a girlfriend calls me and says, I signed you up for Miss Illinois. And I was like, what? Like that wasn't my thing. And she's like, I was like, I'm not doing that. Like beauty isn't my thing. And also, if I'm being honest, at that point in my life, it wasn't something I was comfortable with. I was actually like, I think I had to do a lot of proving myself, especially being in medicine, where people thought maybe I looked a certain way and they treated me a certain way because of it. And so I shied away from a lot.
I don't want to be known just for my beauty. I want to be known for my brains.
Yeah. And not just that, but people would discount me. Man, even to this day, if I think back, that might make me cry. God, that's crazy how that could get you and you just don't even know. Anyways, so she's like, don't worry about it. If they don't call you, they don't call you. And I was like, all right, whatever. Well, they called. And they're like, we saw your photos. We read your background. We'd like to offer you this opportunity. At the time I was 26 and I said, thank you, but no, thank you. And they said, well, listen, you're going to age out. You'll never have this opportunity again. And I was like, oh my God. Like, well, I'm the kind of person, if you tell me that never again, I'm like, I need to do this. Right. So I did it. And I ended up being the first runner up because I was too old to continue on. I was going to age out, but I essentially won the damn thing, right? Like, and I worked my butt off. I was the shortest girl, the oldest girl, the first time doing it. Other people were there for the seventh time, literally. And man, to relearn how to walk, to dance, to do all these things, I was boxing every day and working out 3 times a day. It was a huge experience, but what it taught me was how to find your value in your work. It had nothing to, it didn't teach me that. It revalidated what I knew. But now it was interesting because I was standing on a stage where people were looking at me in terms of what they thought of beauty. But for me, I had pride. I had no more thoughts of what other people were seeing. It was completely internal. I was proud to stand up there in a bikini and a ball gown. It didn't matter what, because I was like, I worked my ass off, honey. So think what you want. And I took that with me as a developing woman because it has allowed me to share with other women that your value is an internal thing. Find your pride in your journey, the hard times, the good times, all of it. It will never be by what people see from the outside. And I'm a believer that perception is false. I am not a believer in perception. People always say, well, perception is the truth and it is what they see. Just because that's how you see it doesn't mean that's what it is. Ask somebody, right? So it was a big journey for me and a learning experience. And then, eventually I became a mom. And I focused on that time. I did some business things, here and there, working from home and independently as like an entrepreneur. But I focused on raising my son. And then when he went to kindergarten full time, it was interesting because I had a moment where a friend of mine said to me, Jennifer, remember when you used to, because I used to be very vocal on social media, and remember when you used to do this, or remember when you achieved that? And I was like, I did? Like I had virtually, absolutely, honestly forgotten. I didn't even remember I had done so many of those things in my life. And it showed me how much of myself that I lost because my new life as a mom was, it's 7:00. Oh my God, maybe I can shower now. Right? Like, oh my God, I have to brush my teeth, or I want to, and okay, I have the baby on the floor in a little thing. And, while I'm trying to do all this stuff at one time, and, you lose yourself. And so when he went to school, I was looking at the markets and I was like, beauty is a big market. Tech is a big market. Let's bring them together and see what we can achieve for women. And so that's where we are.
Oh my gosh, what an incredible story. So many pivots and so many things that I want to touch on. If a woman as powerful as you can forget who you are, no wonder so many moms forget their identity or forget who they are in this world when they're going through motherhood, right? And finding our way back to ourselves, understanding who are we in this world and what is the impact that we're meant to make. But going back to some of those different pivots, I know there's a lot of women that are in a season of transition that are wondering, how do I make this transition? How do I know that I'm on the right path? How do I know that I am making moves that I'm meant to make? Speak to some of those feelings that you felt as you've made all these different transitions.
I love that question. And here's why. What I notice in many people is that they are so afraid to make mistakes. Personally, I am not. If something goes wrong, oh, well, I'm a problem solver. I'm going to fix it. Okay. And I noticed that in a lot of people, in a lot of businesses, that they're so afraid that they're going to make a mistake or something's going to go wrong. They never start. And it's okay. It's okay if something doesn't go as planned. I think honesty is the most liberating virtue. Can we call it a virtue? Right? Virtue to have is, especially when I have business calls as an entrepreneur, do pitches, they'll say, if I'm asked a question, I'll be like, well, honestly, I don't know that right now. I said, but here's what I'm doing to try to understand that information. Here's what my hope is. This is what my intentions are. This is what I'm actively pursuing. And this is what I'm going to try. But I don't know that answer. And I think having the ability to say, I don't know is powerful. It's okay. Having the ability to say that I messed up. I made a mistake. Can you teach me? This isn't going how I thought. You know, we are human. And the minute that you accept that of yourself, you will start to elevate and achieve in new ways that you probably would never have dreamed of. It's a really important thing to be able to do.
Absolutely. I'm with you. I don't think there's anything that is wrong. There's mistakes in some people's definition, but for me, it's learning lessons. It's things that maybe just didn't work out. So it's ways of finding ways that will work out. I'm always experimenting, and that's okay. As far as transitioning, though, did you ever struggle with what is the world going to think of me now when I go from becoming a doctor to transitioning into media? Will I be judged for this? Or transitioning from media into business consultant, am I going to be judged for this? Did you ever struggle with that?
Yeah, it was that's when I call it the leap of faith. It was a heartbreaking, devastating moment for me. I remember just sitting in a physics course at U of M, and I was writing, brainstorming ideas of things that I wanted to do. And I literally just put my pencil down and I was like, I'm done. And they're like looking at me like, what do you mean you're done? I was like, I'm done. And this isn't what I'm going to do. And the turmoil inside for me, it was sad. It was heartbreaking because it really did want to be a doctor. And I felt like I remember like I was letting my family down. I remember I even like called my grandfather because he would, oh, my daughter, Jenny, my granddaughter, she's going to be a doctor. And like, there was so much pride that people took in that idea that they had for you. I remember calling him and telling him about it. And he was like, honey, whatever you want is going to make me happy. And I was like, okay. And I think I was really stuck on that. And you have to learn for yourself and for others that the vision of how you think your life is going to go is going to change a million times. Even if you do exactly what you said, that doesn't mean that that's what it's always going to be. We can change and reinvent ourselves constantly. And, actually, it's liberating. You should be excited about that opportunity in life. You can always change your mind. You know, if you call me in the morning and say, obviously you want to be reliable, right? But, you learn new information. And as a result, you're supposed to change and evolve. You don't have to stay in one path constantly.
We're always becoming different versions of ourselves. And the version of ourselves that we are today would never have made the same decisions before. But that's the beauty of it, that you get to make new decisions because of the new version of yourself that you've become. I think there's a lot of women that are living in what they believe someone else wants them to be versus stepping into, this is the impact I know I'm called to make in the world. How does that courage feel for you?
It is interesting because I think as you mature as a woman or man or have new life experiences, but I think especially as a woman, because there's a lot of different pressures on us of how we should be. I was definitely raised in a house of how I should be. There weren't like many risk takers. And I think the older I got and the more triumph that I experienced, I became much more secure in being able to say no. I became much more confident in who I am as a person and the definition of who Jennifer is and what my truth is inside, comparative to how people see me or what they expect or what they hear when I say something as opposed to how I mean it. And then I think you start to align with people that accept the authentic you and want to know that person and give you grace when you don't align with how they want you to be. And I think that's empowering. Did that answer that question?
Oh, totally. It's interesting to me that you didn't see risk takers. What was it in the world that gave you the confidence to be a risk taker when you didn't grow up seeing that?
Oh, seeing what it looks like when you're not.
Right. Speak to that.
And I think in a lot of households, kids either grow up and they do exactly what their parents do, or they do the opposite. And I, there's things, of course, that when it comes to particular values and ethics and things like that, I always align with my parents. But, they're very safe people. My mom's also, it's interesting because, so my mom's an immigrant. She's she's born in Palermo, Sicily. She came here when she was a teen with 6 siblings. And I would think that somebody that crosses oceans to come and had to like relearn their ABCs and, when they're in high school and all of that stuff would be very unafraid to do new things. Boyers, not that way. And I just wanted different. I didn't want to ever to say to somebody, I can't do that because I don't know how. I'm like, Google exists. Okay. There's nothing in the world we cannot, but so, when I was a little kid, at the time they had the yellow pages, right? The internet wasn't even out until I was, a little, like middle school. And, I used to call random people in the yellow pages. And yeah, I remember, oh my God, because I can't even imagine my son doing this today, right? And like I was his age and I'd be like, hi, my name is Jennifer. I'm 10. Can I shadow you to learn from you? Like I didn't have somebody that was actively teaching you those things other than like, if you want to do it, you better do it yourself. And I do a lot.
Who were some of those key people that you reached out to and what was their impact on your life now? If they were listening, what would you want to tell them that they did for you?
Thanks for giving me a chance. Right. My teachers, my God, it's a different world today too. Like I remember the people who gave me my first job at a doctor's office. They took me under their wing, all those doctors, and they were the ones who actually said, my God, I mean, they were, God, you'd be the best doctor in the world. You work so hard. You're smart. You're this, you're that, but don't do it. This industry's a mess. Terrible. Yeah. And, but I mean, they were amazing. Like they would let me work on half days of school. They'd let me work in the summer. They'd let me come back during college. Like taking kids under your wing and giving them the opportunity to learn and lead is life-changing. I went into college and in the job force really having skill sets that like real doctors had, right? It was a team of brain surgeons I was working with at 15. And I think my teachers, they were always a very safe place for me. I had teachers that I was very close to, that I would confide in, good mentors. And I don't know, I just think that's so important.
There's so many people along the way that change our trajectory in one way or another. And at the time, I don't think they realize the impact that they're having, or we realize how those moments will still come up for you later in life, right? You have those little memories of, I remember that moment. And I know because of that, whatever they said or whatever they did, I know that tells me I'm supposed to be on this path. This is the direction I'm supposed to be going. Have there been moments along the way that you felt like your impact is so much bigger than what you are making in the present moment?
Yeah, I feel that. So when I build any businesses or when I have any relationships of any kind, I'm a believer that the most valuable thing that you can bring to a table is helping somebody or ensuring somebody to feel seen, heard, and understood. And that's how you connect with people. And when I make it a point that I want to create impact, right? In whatever I do. It doesn't have to be something life-changing, but I am going to stop. I'm going to hear you. I am going to hear what you say of you before I tell you anything. And I'm going to offer, if you are open to it, whatever feedback or insight I can give you that will bring value to you. Now, you don't have to take it, but I'm there to support you. And I think that I have lived a journey of getting to know myself very authentically and feeling comfortable in that. And the stronger you feel as an individual, the more ability you have to celebrate and uplift others. And I think a lot of people are disconnected from their authenticity, so they don't celebrate or uplift others as much because they're still trying to navigate themselves. And I think truly, so when you are kind of disconnected, we see a lot of negativity in the world. We see a lot of people that break others down. We see a lot of people that cause chaos and scandal, and that's what they're attracted to. And you're really attracted to that because there's something unsettling inside of you. I just believe in trying to be a peacemaker. Like, can't we all just get along? Yeah, we can. It's a choice. If it's not going the right way, well, let's figure out how to, turn the ship around. And a lot of people aren't committed to doing that kind of thing. So that's when you just realize where you're meant to be, or if it's not for you. If it doesn't make you feel good at night when you're laying in bed, that means that you're not in the right situation.
Yeah. How does a person go about some of those things you just spoke to, being more in alignment with yourself and being more authentic within yourself? We can't give to others something that we can't give to ourselves. So women are able to empower other women and make an impact in the world if they're not able to empower themselves. So speak to some of the things that you've done in your life that have given you that self-empowerment, whether it's things you do on a daily basis or things that you've done as a big commitment.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. So on a daily basis, I start my day with gratitude. I am happy to wake up and to be healthy with an able mind and body. I know what it feels like to not have those things. I've gone through some journeys that have.
Like what?
Oh, wow. A lot of things. Well, I think my first experience with that was my pregnancy with my son. It was very difficult. I had hyperemesis, which like 2% of women have. I was unable to eat anything, like throwing up 30 times a day, bedridden, constantly fighting for my life. I was 90 pounds when I delivered my son.
Oh my gosh.
It was, I didn't know if he or I were going to make it from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
There's like goosebumps
of the 10 months. So that was something that, taught me a lot about survival mode. And then later in my life, actually during COVID, I got COVID in March 2020, and it turned my life upside down. I was violently sick. I was a long COVID person, and it lasted 4 years. And nobody could figure out what to do with me. I developed chronic fatigue. I developed a lot of things that were just really challenging, and doing it while being a mom and launching businesses and trying to maintain a home and doing all of these things. It was extremely hard. I did not have the ability to exercise. I couldn't walk on a treadmill for literally 1 minute without having a horrible fatigue reaction. Today, I run 5 miles a day and I weightlift. And that was a journey of, and this is an important lesson here of, I can do this now. I wasn't able to do this then, but appreciating that, okay, I did 30 seconds today and the world is still okay. Okay. Tomorrow I'm going to try 35 seconds. And when I'm telling you that my journey from 35 seconds to 5+ miles, that's how it went over a 4-year span. That's a big thing, celebrating your small wins, right? And having a lot of gratitude for what you can do, not focusing on what you can't do. So that's a big lesson in my life of how I start my day. And then in terms of, for going back to the question you asked, vulnerability is a superpower, and it allows you to connect with people, because when you can be vulnerable, I think especially when people who know me, I'm very candid. Like we started this call. I'm like, listen, the HVAC guy was here and blah, blah, blah. Somebody else might have sat down and said, okay, let's start. We're recording. And no, this is what it is, right? This is what it is. We're working on the air conditioner today, baby. I don't know what you want from me, but here we are. I'm ready. So, just vulnerability and honesty and transparency are so important, because when people know what they're dealing with, then you can all get on the same page. You can see each other, and you go from there.
Was there times in your life where either you were not able to be your authentic self in relationships, or you've witnessed other people struggle with that being the block in having amazing relationships and an exciting life?
both. So I'd say, I grew up in a home that I saw a lot of tiptoeing around and codependency. Um, and I remember I had a therapist one time who was life changing for me. And she told me, she said, read this book, Codependent No More. And I started reading it and I was pissed. I was like, this is my mom. Why would you have me read this? I was furious. And then she's like, keep reading.
Like what sounded like your mom, or it was describing your mom?
It was like describing my mom, which gave me resentment because I didn't like certain dynamics. And then I kept reading and I was like, this is me. And it was an eye-opening moment of, I didn't realize I had also learned to compromise things that I wanted to do in small ways. So example, let's say, I was in a relationship and someone said, okay, well, we're going to dinner at 7. Okay, so what did that mean? I wasn't going to exercise. I wasn't going to do whatever I wanted to do to take care of me because now I had to stop everything to make sure that I did this for that and da 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 da. And today I don't do that. I learned to say, okay, when I'm done doing whatever it is that I need to do to take care of Jennifer, I will be there, right? And I might not be able to be there at 7, but I'll see you at 7:30. And I didn't, I would drop the world for people once upon a time in life. And I still do that in certain respects, but it is so long that I am physically, mentally, emotionally taken care of first. And so that was life-changing for me.
We tell ourselves stories that we'll be a bad person if we don't go along with whatever everyone else wants to have. But what's the damage that you're doing to yourself in those micro decisions of just going with what everyone else wants?
Yeah, a lot. a lot, because you build up resentment inside, right? So now you might be at that dinner and you didn't work out and you're like, you're not feeling good about yourself. Exercise is not vanity. It's mental. It's emotional. For me, I do those 5 miles a day because it regulates my nervous system. It balances me out. I'm a nicer person. And, so everybody has their reasons of why they do things, of taking care of themselves. And I just think that has to be the first priority.
Absolutely. You said earlier that you want to make sure people feel seen, heard, and understood. I think that is what everyone wants. Everyone wants to feel seen, heard, and understood. Were there times where you did not feel seen, heard, and understood?
Always. Probably my whole upbringing, I was...
Because you were different than everyone that you were in your family? Or why?
I grew up in a really strict house, and it didn't really matter what I thought. This is what it was going to be, right? And I'm very different as a parent, because I talk to my son in ways of like, I care what he thinks. It's not like my way or the highway. Oh, I mean, depends, right? I mean, my mom and dad have rubbed off on me in ways, but there wasn't a lot of like feelings in my house. It was very, my dad was a chief in the fire department. So he was very like militant, very sergeant-like, right? And so that's just a different atmosphere. And, we're in a different world today too, where people do things like therapy and they do things like, it's normal. And that wasn't normal when I was growing up. So, yeah.
The resources you said Google we didn't have, it was Yellow Pages. You couldn't go to the Yellow Pages and research emotional intelligence or how am I being codependent in my relationships. That information wasn't in our hands on a daily basis like it is now. So I give a lot of grace to earlier generations not being able to implement and make some of these changes because they did not have access to the same information that we have now. So,
my parents are very different today, especially as grandparents. I'm like, those people, I don't even know who they are. I mean, they are just lovey, kissy, do
big teddy bears
cross the world for my son. And I'm just like, all right. And she just accept it for what it is.
Yeah. What would you say? I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that.
Yeah.
What would you say to the woman who has an idea on her heart, like Trace Face or anything that you've accomplished that is wanting to step into her purpose and her own mission in life and is struggling with taking that first step?
just do it. Like, there's something that I hear, women face, not just women, men, everybody, imposter syndrome. They're like, well, I don't know anything about this. And it's like, come on, honey. Yes, you do. Let's sit down. Let's Google it. Let's learn about it. And that's the first step. Google it. Learn about it. Learn about the industry. Learn about what's on the market. Research what's on the market. Research, critiques about what's on the market, and then think about to yourself, how can I make this better? And then, who builds things like this? Google that company, go on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is amazing. You can connect with anybody. People will talk to you. Send someone a message. I remember I was listening to one of my girlfriend's husbands one time, and he was like, well, I can't just message a stranger. I was like, what? I was like, everybody I know is a stranger, and I just feel like people think that, that's, you shouldn't do those things, but you have to, so just do it. For me, when I don't believe in fear, I have so much faith that I don't believe in fear. And I believe those two things can't coexist. So if you have faith, you can also have fear. But if I have something in me that makes me question, can I do this? That is my cue internally that, like, I have to do that. So that's something I practice.
Now, is faith something that has always been a part of your life?
Yeah, I was definitely raised in a Christian home. Actually, my mom was Catholic and my dad grew up Baptist. So I experienced both of those things. And I think, when I was a kid, it was like I did those things because that was just like what my family did. And I believed, but I didn't. I felt it differently once I was older, and that was in college. And I had a roommate at the time who was like always going to these Bible studies and stuff. And quite frankly, she was driving me nuts because I was like, I can't hear any more Bible verses. Like, I was like, oh my God. Right. And then one day I was going through a really hard time, and she brought me a Bible, and she's like, just read it. And then I read it like cover to cover, and every day I would read a little, and it changed my life. I mean, it became the center of every thought and action that I had. And so I think that's the one thing. I think that's in the moments when I get sad about how somebody might see or interpret something about me, what I know or differently than what my truth is. It's because I know that my truth is so centered on my faith and my integrity that if it's misinterpreted in some kind of way, it feels like a blow. And then or it saddens me because I like the opportunity for it to not be that way because it's not true how I feel inside. But then I also think, people persecuted Jesus. So I'm like, all right, then I just keep going.
Who am I that I would not be put under the same?
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing. I think that's a hard thing for a lot of women to feel misunderstood in the world, to be judged by whatever the person is perceiving you to be in what your intentions are or what your actual heart is. And understanding that, knowing yourself and trusting yourself, that is the way that you don't let those things be blows, right? How much would you say the Bible is actually a business book?
It's a great question. How is the Bible a business book? Now, the Bible is an everything book.
And everything.
I think that, the golden rule of the Bible is treat others how you want to be treated. If we could do that, life would be so easy, right? I think the other thing about the Bible is that what's very honest about it is that your expectation to be perfect, that's not true. Like when people say they're Christian, I think people look at them and they say, well, you would be doing A, B, C, and D. Well, no, I am Christian because I know that I fall short. And therefore, I feel that I can pray about it and try to make it right. I can admit that I did something wrong, and now can I make it right? And having the genuine, sincere desire to do that is what the differentiator is. So I feel like if you have integrity in life, you might not always be treated that way and receive it in return, but things work out. Maybe not in your time, but I'm a believer in God's time that He saves you when when something falls apart, that it's not for you. And that's what trust and faith come in.
How hard have those seasons been to walk through?
They get easier. They were devastating. They were tragic, and they were hard. then they were pretty hard, then they were sad. And I was like, okay, all right. You sort you're like, you took me through the last 20, so we're just going to go again. And what I think is learning how to feel your feelings, right? If I am upset about something, I make sure that I give myself time to grieve that. Grieving is not just death, right? It's a failed relationship. It's a failed venture. It's a failed friendship. And allow yourself to process what you just experienced and be honest about how it makes you feel, what your hopes were, and now what your hopes are going forward. And I think that's so important to give yourself time to process the things you experience.
And we can even grieve the past version of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned from that therapist I told you that I've seen in my life that there's 3 stages of grieving. And you grieve what was, you grieve what is, and you grieve what never will be. And that can apply in death, it can apply in relationships, it can apply to anything. And once you get through those 3 steps, then you go into what is radical acceptance. And radical acceptance is not saying that what happened was good or okay. It's saying that I'm going to choose internal peace to release and keep moving and feel okay about it. And I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. Hanging on to the story that it should have been is a poison that you're poisoning yourself by holding on to the stories of this is how it should have been. This is what was wrong. This is what should have happened. All of those. I think you actually we chatted a little bit before, but you said something about shoulding and how people are so hung up on shoulds in their lives.
Yeah, I think so. Now it's funny because when you said that of how it should have been, I like heard this in my head going, no, it shouldn't have, right? Because if it was for you, it wouldn't have gone that way. What should have happened, it doesn't matter. We can stay stuck on what should have happened forever, but it's about saying we can constantly evolve, like be a problem solver, go forward. You can constantly change. You don't have to start one way and finish another way. Maybe, somebody should have treated you a certain way, or you should have taken a certain path. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. I don't care what should have been. I'm going to look at what is, and then what can I do about it to go forward? And I think that's an important space to stay in.
And maybe what should have happened is exactly what happened, because whatever happened that's preparation grounds for whatever's coming next.
Yeah. And there's a lot of times in my life where I have looked back and said, wow, thank you, God, for saving me from what I thought I wanted. And you see it differently as things unfold. And you might find there's like this thing on Instagram that I always see, and it's like a little girl and she's holding this tiny little teddy bear. And then she's like looking at Jesus and she's like, oh, but I love it. And then behind his back, he's got this giant teddy bear, right? And she doesn't know that, but she's holding on to this little piece. And sometimes there's just such a bigger plan for you than what it is that you think you're missing.
That's so beautiful. I love that. Something that I found telling my son a lot lately, my oldest son is 17, is that nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent. No decision that we make is permanent. No outline that we have for our lives. No path that we're on. Nothing is actually permanent. It's always evolving.
Well, I teach my son that too, because I think, success is not permanent and failure is not permanent. Good health is not permanent. You have to maintain. And you have to put the work in and the mindset in to wake up every day with gratitude that you can and seize the opportunity that you will continue, because you will lose if you do not. And I think people, I think one of the things that blows my mind all the time is I hear people constantly criticize somebody who's very successful or very wealthy. And they'll say, well, it must be so easy for you. That doesn't stay there if you don't work. Right? You need to keep working. in order to figure out how to maintain a situation until you're in a situation where, you know, you may have to do less and there's other people around you that can help, but you still have to work to get those people going. So it's a constant commitment. And we know that with our health too, right? You have to work at it every day. So I agree with you. I believe in that as well.
And relationships. What has been the best advice that you've ever received that you've just never forgotten?
You know, there's probably a lot of things that I would say, but the best advice that I received that I'd never forgotten did probably come from my mom when I was very young, and she always told me, where there's a will, there's a way. And I think that lit my fire to understand that I was never going to just lay down and accept no for an answer. And I believe it. And I've lived my life in that way, where no does not really mean anything to me. It just means like no means maybe you're not willing to be trying, but I am. And so as a result, I've achieved a lot of different things that other people wouldn't even start to try. Um, and I'm a visionary. So I am the type of person that will create something that doesn't exist. And I love that for people. I love when somebody has an idea in their head and they try, even if they don't make it happen. I just love when I see people try. And so I think that's really important advice.
Knowing all that we've chatted about and everything about you, you're a powerful woman. What is one thing that you wish people knew about you better?
That's a funny question, because I just saw Mike Tyson answer that question and he said nothing, and that made me laugh. But I get the sentiment to it. And here's why I'm bringing it up, is because I learned that it doesn't matter what they know about me. It doesn't matter what they think about me. I'm not concerned. I do care about how I make someone feel. And so I would say that that's important to me. Jennifer cares how she makes you feel. And I would want them to believe that. And I think that's all we have in life. I think that when you leave this world, that's all people remember of you too. Mm-hmm. And so I would always want the opportunity to right my wrong. And I think it goes back to what we say the golden rule is: treat people how you want to be treated. And I think that would be that.
I think even when we know our intention is 100% to do good in the world, to create positive ripples, you're still going to have experiences where people, because of their own stories, because of their perception, because of whatever they went through that morning, they see a different version of you than the authentic version of you. And you spoke to this earlier, that you have to be at peace with knowing that the way you showed up, your intention, it always goes back to your intention. As long as you know your intention was there to do good. And then, yeah, if I've hurt you, I'd love to know about it, because I'd love to make it right, to let you know that my intention was never to cause harm.
Yeah. And that's so true, because, there's many times where I have said something, because like I said, I'm very candid. So I just say, and then somebody might hear it a certain way. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what I meant. Or that's not why I said it. Or that wasn't my intention, right? And so I think that's important.
There's a lot of different facets to all of these topics. There's a lot of different ways that you can look at things, but ultimately how you view yourself, how you know you show up in the world, and the micro promises that you keep to yourself, that's what will bring peace, right?
People see you through the lens of their own experiences and their own traumas. So that's why I said I can relate to what Mike Tyson said, because it doesn't matter if you do right or wrong. People are going, and this is why I said I don't believe in perception, because they are going to make their perception based on the lens of their own experiences. And you don't have any control of that. All you have control of is your values and your character and what you're going to do from, as a person.
And I wonder how many people are spending their lives worrying about all these things that are so outside of themselves, instead of what is your actual work to do here?
Yeah, well, I think that is such a good point, because I think we lose sight of that very easily. People get really wrapped up in, what they think of someone else or what someone else thinks of them. And then they miss the opportunity. They miss the opportunity to come together. They miss the opportunity to celebrate, to feel joy. They miss the opportunity to grow and achieve because they're so hyper focused on the drama, the scandal, the division, the problems that, when I do in any of the businesses that I'm a part of, you can tell me the problem one time, but then we're talking about the solution. And that's it. I don't want to hear it again. I don't care who did it. I don't care why. I heard it once and that's enough. Now let's talk about what we're doing to solve it. And I think people that work with me, they start to understand that and then appreciate it too, because it's like, maybe not in the beginning because people love to hype on the problems, right? But then they start to realize that it's liberating, right? Oh, we don't have to nail anybody to the cross here. It doesn't matter. Like, let's go team. We're going to pick it up and we're going to make it better. And let's be positive. And I think friendships can be that way. I think relationships and for sure business.
Incredible leadership advice right there. Incredible leadership advice. And I love that. Absolutely. So face trace, when do we expect to be able to use this as consumer?
So if you asked me this a couple years ago, I would have said next week, right? And so that's the thing too, when we talk about what should be, I'm going to say I don't know that answer right now because I'm developing. And so I no longer give people times because I'm not sure. I know that I'm actively working. I have other things that I work on too, daily. I'm involved with special education schools. And, we have students in these schools that are ages 5 to 22 with special needs, autism, trauma, all kinds of things. So that's something that I work on daily too. We have 5 going on 6 schools and I love being a part of that. So that takes a lot of commitment from me as well. So yeah, we have like 370 students and it's amazing to be able to help kids who really need support. So I'm busy with that and simultaneously.
What drew you to that? What was it about your life or life experiences that drew you into making an impact in that way?
Yeah. So this is the thing about being an entrepreneur is that, so I'll give you two pieces of advice. One is, if you're in a particular industry, sometimes people spend a lot of time surveying who they believe their specific demographic is. And they'll go and they'll get their feedback of who their customer is. I say, yes, do that. But an important piece is talk to the person who is not your customer. Because if they find what you're doing to have value or to be compelling, for sure you have something there. Like when I was building Face Trace at the time, my son was 5. And I was like, here, buddy, try the software. He put makeup on, right? Like he's a 5-year-old little boy. And it showed me like, okay, this is cool. Okay, this is easy. Okay, a child can understand this. And he's telling all his friends, right? And he was a great tester for me because if a little kid can understand it, is he my customer? No, a 34-year-old woman was my customer, right? If he could understand it, then I can get this into a market where mass people could understand it. So that's one. 2, I think people become very industry focused and you should be industry agnostic. You never know what you can get involved in. So I got involved with this with a friend of mine who's a real estate developer. And he was telling me he had already had 4 schools and he wanted to open another one nearby where I was. And I was like, well, let me look around at a location for you. And we were going to do business in the sense that I was going to help with the real estate and consulting and things like that, just because, he knows me to be another entrepreneur. And I ended up finding this off-market location. And then, my degree was, psychology, and I had a specific study in child development, and I wanted to be a part of it. And then it turned into opening that school, getting the students, helping to run the business, doing a lot of things, being hands-on with business development, opening more schools, hiring. And then I started helping to really lead and run a lot of the company. And then we just went from there. And now we have a relationship where we are continuing to grow and opening more schools, and I love it. So you just never know what something could turn into by asking if you can be involved. Like I always ask,
Mhm.
what are you doing? What are you working on? Can I help? Right?
Mhm.
You never know what can come of it.
A true entrepreneur is a person that solves problems in the marketplace.
Mhm.
And you never know what problems you're actually meant to solve. And I think we get really stuck thinking this is the problem I want to solve. And maybe that's not the problem you're actually meant to solve.
Yeah, no. I mean, like my life is a great example. I, went to school to be a doctor. I went into the media, then I went into tech. Um, I'm doing things in education. I'm also working on a cosmetics line right now, so
Mm.
there's just a lot of, you don't have to be in one area. You can do anything. And you can do
Mhm.
it at more than one thing at a time.
Well, you're so inspiring. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram. Jennifer Christensen is my handle. My email address is on there. They can also find me on LinkedIn.
Well, I'm so excited to continue to watch your journey unfold. I thank you for this time. Anything on your heart to say before we hop off?
Thank you for the opportunity to talk today. I think what you're doing is amazing. I love that you have a platform where women and people can share their stories. And I think it's important for people to be able to do that, to learn from each other, to understand that they're not alone in their journeys, and to feel comfortable to connect with people. We are all, I think, one of the greatest things that I've experienced is I've talked to people who, have been in the billions of dollars of success, and their stories, they always say the same thing. Especially I remember when I first founded my tech startup, they would sit over dinner and they'd say, I know exactly where you are. And I remember that. And to hear that from people that have been so wildly successful, to say, I know exactly where you are. And they say it just like it was that morning. Shows we all start from somewhere, and you could take pride in that, right? And feel like it's okay, all right, just get started, just get started.
We're all so much more alike than I think we realize.
Totally, totally.
Mhm.
And that goes to feeling seen, heard, and understood. People want that,
Mhm.
and if we just appreciate people for being good people, I think we just go from there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I've so enjoyed this conversation. And like I said, I look forward to continue to follow along. So I will be chatting with you soon, I'm sure.
Thank you so much. Okay, you have a good day. Thank you so much.
What an incredible conversation. Jennifer's story is a powerful reminder that we are never stuck, that your pivots have purpose, your detours carry wisdom, and your setbacks, they might be the setup for something far greater than you ever imagined. From overcoming chronic illness to redefining beauty and purpose on her own terms, Jennifer shows us that with faith, honesty, and a willingness to grow, we can rebuild again and again. So let me leave you with this question. What would shift in your life if you stopped asking, what will people think? And you started asking, what do I know that I'm here to do? You don't need permission to become who you were created to be. Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing your heart and your story with us. And to every woman listening, your purpose is unfolding. Your next chapter, it might be the one that changes everything. Until next time, stay rooted in your purpose and let no one clip your wings.